She stands at the sink. The water runs warm. She turns her hands over slowly, methodical, unhurried, watching the red swirl down the drain. Behind her, barely 2 years old, a little boy sits on the floor. He doesn't cry. He just watches. She rinses. She dries her hands. She checks her reflection in the window. Then she picks up her bag, steps over the threshold, and pulls the door shut behind her quietly, like a guest who didn't want to overstay her welcome. She has just stabbed a woman to death in her own home, and she will not be caught for 25 years. This story starts with a teenage crush, a girl, a boy, a tennis court, and a rejection she was never able to let go of. What it becomes, that's something else entirely. Stick with me on this one, because the ending is unlike anything I've ever covered on this channel. I promise you, you are not going to see it coming. To understand what happened in 1999, you have to go back about 20 years, to Japan, to a high school girl named Kumiko. It's the 1970s. Kumiko is a teenager, bright, quiet, the kind of girl who notices things. And one afternoon at the school's tennis club, she notices him. His name is Satoru. He's a fellow student, a member of the same club, and Kumiko thinks he is something else. Now look, a teenage crush is one of the most normal things in the world. We've all been there. You see someone across a room and suddenly you can't think straight. You replay conversations in your head. You find reasons to be in places you know they'll be. That's where Kumiko is. She starts paying attention to Satoru, thinking about him constantly, and eventually she decides she's going to do the one thing that takes more courage than almost anything else at that age. She's going to tell him how she feels. She knows he could reject her. What if he does? Is it worth the risk? She decides it is. She goes up to him. She tells him she likes him. He says no. Kumiko is devastated. But here's the thing. She's also not the type to give up easily. So on Valentine's Day, she sends him chocolates and a handwritten love letter. He's still not interested. She starts waiting for him after tennis practice so they can walk home together. Satoru is a nice enough guy, so he walks with her sometimes. But gradually, he picks up on something. An intensity, a fixation. He starts distancing himself, being less available, finding other routes home. Eventually, they both graduate. They go their separate ways, and decades pass. Audience engagement prompt. Before we get into what happens next, drop in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious where this channel is reaching. Say hi. It's now 1999. Kumiko is 42 years old. She's married. She has 2 kids. On paper, she has a full life. But underneath that, she's exhausted. Years of managing a household, raising children, doing the kind of invisible labor that piles up quietly until one day you look in the mirror and realize you can't remember the last time you felt like yourself. She's unhappy, and she's been unhappy for a while. Then one day, an envelope arrives. An invitation, a reunion for the old high school tennis club. And her mind goes immediately to him, Satoru. Here's what Kumiko tells herself. He's probably miserable in his marriage too. He probably never got over what we could have been. This could be our moment. After all this time, this could be it. She gets dressed up. She goes, and there he is, Satoru. Still handsome, still easy in a room, still the guy she's been carrying around in the back of her mind for 20 plus years. Everyone catches up. People talk about their lives, their families, their careers. Kumiko tells the group she's married, has kids, doing well. Satoru tells them he's married to a woman named Nami and that they have a young son. He talks about his work at a real estate company. He even mentions his schedule, which days he goes into the office, which days he stays home. He is not miserable. He is not secretly pining. He is, by every measure, a man who is happy with his life. Kumiko hears all of this, and something in her doesn't accept it. Pattern interrupt mini cliffhanger. After 2 decades, most people would have let it go, would have walked out of that reunion, driven home, and filed the whole thing under another chapter closed. Kumiko did not do that. What Kumiko does next isn't the behavior of someone nursing an old crush. It's something more calculated, more deliberate. She starts gathering intelligence. She figures out where Satoru and his family live in Nagoya. She maps out his weekly schedule, the information he'd casually shared at the reunion. She learns the rhythms of his household, and the more she learns about his life, the more her focus shifts from him to her, to Nami, his wife. Jealousy is a strange thing. At its core, it's not really about the other person. It's about a story you've told yourself about what you deserve, about what should have been yours. And Kamiko has been telling herself this particular story for 20 years. In her version of it, Satoru was always supposed to be hers. Nami was never part of the story. So Kamiko rewrites the ending. She arrives at a conclusion that is, by any rational standard, completely unhinged, and she arrives at it with terrifying calm. Nami is the obstacle. Remove Nami, and Satoru becomes available. He'll grieve, yes, but eventually he'll need someone, and Kamiko will be there. This is the logic she's operating on. The logic of a woman who has spent 2 decades in a fantasy so complete that reality no longer registers the way it should. Satoru has never once shown interest in her. Not in high school, not at the reunion, not in any interaction they've had in the 20-plus years since they were classmates. None of that matters to her now. She starts waiting for the right day, the right window, when she's certain Satoru won't be home. If you're new here and you're not subscribed yet, do it right now. I cover cases like this every single week, and what happens next is the part that changes everything. One day in 1999, that window opens. Satoru is at work. Kamiko knows this. She's studied his schedule. She knows exactly where he'll be and for how long. She goes to their apartment in Nagoya. She walks up to the door. She knocks. Nami answers. Now here's the thing about Nami. She has no reason to be suspicious. The woman at her door is someone from her husband's past, someone he knows from his old school days, a familiar face from a harmless reunion. She lets Kamiko in. What happens next is brutal, and it is quick. Kamiko pulls out a knife. She stabs Nami, once, then again, over and over. Nami fights back. Her blood ends up on her attacker, but she cannot survive what is being done to her. Nami dies in her own home, and the entire time, her 2-year-old son is in the room. He watches all of it. I want you to sit with that for a second. A toddler, watching his mother be murdered, unable to understand what is happening, unable to help, unable to run. Kumiko does not harm the child. She leaves him there. She walks to the sink. She turns on the tap, and she calmly washes the blood from her hands. The same image that opened this story, and she leaves the apartment as quietly as she arrived. Later that afternoon, a neighbor notices something. The front door of the apartment is open, just slightly, but it's unusual. These neighbors keep their door closed. He goes to check. He finds Nami. He calls the police. What time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments. I want to know what hour people are watching this at, because I feel like this is the kind of story that keeps you up at night. Police arrive, and they start working the scene. What they find is both promising and frustrating. There are 2 distinct blood types present, the victims and someone else's, the killers. Whoever stabbed Nami was also cut or wounded during the attack, and they left their blood behind. The evidence tells them this. The second person was a woman, blood type B. She wore a size 24-centimeter shoe, a women's size 6, for reference. That's it. That's what they have. It's 1999. DNA technology exists, but it's nowhere near what it would become. The sample they have is valuable, but they can't match it to anyone without a suspect. And they have no suspects. The only witness to the murder is a 2-year-old boy. The investigation stalls. Tips dry up, leads go nowhere, the case goes cold, and Kumiko goes home. Back to her husband, back to her kids, back to her life. She carries what she did with her, silently, invisibly, every single day. Real quick, if you're watching this and you feel something right now, hit that like button. It costs you nothing, but it helps this story reach more people. And honestly, Nami deserves for more people to know her name. You about Satoru now, because this part of the story is the one that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. He comes home that day to find police tape, investigators, and his wife gone. His son, barely 2 years old, has been taken to safety. His apartment is a crime scene. He is shattered in a way that does not have a clean word for it. And here's what he doesn't do. He doesn't clean up the crime scene. Not the apartment, not the blood on the floor, not any of it. Because Satoru believes with a conviction that most people would not be able to sustain for a week, let alone a decade, that one day, that blood evidence will identify who killed his wife. And he refuses to take that chance away from investigators. Every year, on the anniversary of Nami's death, He walks out onto the street and he hands out flyers, printed sheets with information about the case, asking if anyone knows anything, keeping the public memory of it alive by sheer force of personal will. Year after year, for 25 years. After 3 or 4 years, the apartment becomes too painful to live in. He moves out. He finds somewhere else to stay. That's understandable. Anyone would. But here's the part that stops me cold every time I think about it. He keeps paying rent on the old apartment. He doesn't want anyone else to move in. He doesn't want the landlord to clean it up or repaint the walls or disturb what's in there. So he keeps the lease. He pays for it, year after year, out of his own pocket, for a place he never goes back to, just so the evidence stays exactly as it was left. For 26 years, he pays rent on an apartment that holds the last remaining trace of whoever took his wife from him. That is not grief. That is something beyond grief. That is a man who decided that justice was worth whatever it cost him. Emotional anchor, pattern interrupt. 26 years of rent. Let that sink in. While the woman who killed his wife was out there living her life, raising her kids, growing old, he was paying for a frozen room, waiting, refusing to give up. And then, 2024. Audience engagement prompt. What's the weather like where you are right now? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know. I read them. It's 2024. 25 years have passed since Nami was killed. Kumiko is 69 years old. Satoru is 68. He is still handing out flyers. He never stopped. And now finally modern forensic science has caught up. Police launch a proactive DNA screening campaign. They compile a list of several hundred former acquaintances, school alumni, and tennis club members, anyone who could conceivably have a connection to the case, and they begin asking for voluntary DNA samples. Kumiko is on that list. When investigators show up and ask for a sample, she says no. Which, here's the thing, is her legal right in Japan. You cannot be compelled to submit a voluntary DNA sample. She is within her rights to decline. But the police keep coming back. They keep showing up. Politely, persistently, professionally, they keep asking. And every time they show up, Kumiko feels it more. The guilt she has carried for 25 years, the weight of what she did, the image of that little boy on the floor, the sound of water running over blood-stained hands. It gets heavier, day after day, week after week, until she can't carry it anymore. Cliffhanger. And then she did something no one expected. And then she confessed. 25 years of silence. And then nothing dramatic. No chase. No surveillance breakthrough. No forensic smoking gun that she couldn't argue against. Just a 69-year-old woman who couldn't hold it in anymore. The guilt won. Kumiko was arrested. As of now, she has not yet gone to trial under Japanese law. What she's alleged to have done has not yet been formally adjudicated. But she has confessed. And the DNA from that untouched apartment, the blood that Satoru refused to let anyone wash away, matched. 26 years of rent payments. Vindicated. I keep thinking about Satoru hearing that news. That they found her. That the blood spoke finally, the way he always believed it would. After 26 years of flyers, of paying for a room he never entered, of keeping his wife's memory in public view by sheer stubbornness of love, he got an answer. I don't know if that feels like justice. I'm not sure justice is even the right word for what comes after something like this. His son, that 2-year-old boy on the floor, is now in his late 20s. He grew up without his mother because of a woman who convinced herself that love was a debt someone else owed her. That's what obsession does. It doesn't just consume the person who carries it. It reaches out and destroys the people around them. Kumiko spent 25 years free. She raised her kids. She grew old. She lived a life that Nami never got to finish. And Nami's name? Most people outside of Japan have never heard it. I wanted to make sure you heard it today. If this story stayed with you, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. That's how Nami's story keeps living. And if you're new here, I'm glad you found this channel. Hit subscribe because there are more stories like this one, and you don't want to come back and find out you missed them.